Hey everyone, Erin from Morehouse Farm here, and I am really excited about this one because what we are going to do with this swatch is called mirror knitting. And if you've been knitting for a while, you probably learned right stitch is the first stitch and you work in this direction. But what if we could work in this direction also and create stockinette stitch without having to turn the work around? It seems like it might be faster than purling. Well, let's take a look. Now, the first thing that I want you to keep in mind is that learning to do something a different way is a lot harder than learning to do it the first way that you learned, because you're going to pull everything that you know from the first way and try to apply it to the second. And we need to pick and choose what we apply here to see what works best for us. So let me give you an example. If I knit, I'm going to put the working needle behind the holding needle. I'm going to wrap the yarn. I'm going to pull the yarn through and I'm going to slide it off. I'm going to put the working needle behind the holding needle, wrap the yarn, grab the yarn, pull the stitch through, slide it off. If I'm a picker, I'm going to do the same thing in that the working needle goes behind the holding needle, grab the yarn, pull it through and off. Poke it through behind, grab, pull the yarn through and off. Poke the working needle in behind, grab the yarn, pull it through, and old stitch comes off. And that's how a lot of us were taught to knit. However, that doesn't make it the only way to knit. So watch this. This now is going to become our working needle. This one is going to be the holding needle, which means we need to think about putting the working needle behind the holding needle. Now we need to wrap the yarn, and then we need to pull it through this stitch and slide the old stitch off. I've found that talking to myself, believe it or not, has been the best way to help me learn this, because there's a couple of things going on. First, my tendency is to use the motor skills that I've developed over a lot of years and not even think about it. And that's going to lead me wrong. I need to develop a new pathway. So, working needle behind, wrap the yarn, grab the stitch, and pull the old one off. And you'll notice it's almost as if I am grabbing the stitch and pulling it off in the same step. Right, I'm pulling it off really by removing this needle. That's my right hand tendency to be dominant. That's just the way I've learned for so many years. So it's a little trickier breaking that pathway. So again, I need to keep on going. Working needle behind, wrap the yarn. And notice that I'm trying to do this with my left hand because I'm used to holding the yarn in my left hand. That doesn't make it the only way that I can do that. I might want to try holding the yarn in my right hand and seeing what happens. So I'm going to poke my working needle behind. I'm going to wrap the yarn, pull it through and off. Now notice right away, my right leg ends up towards the back because of the way I wrapped that. So I might want to try again. Working needle behind, wrap the yarn this way, pull that stitch through and then off. Hey, look at that. Behind, wrap the yarn, pull it through, and old stitch off. And the only way this is going to get less awkward is to practice. So I bet if you were to do a few inches, notice I just lost that stitch, so same thing in learning to knit the first time. I need to get it back on, I need to wrap the yarn, and I need to continue. And you're going to find that your hands tend to try to do what they did when you are knitting the way that you learned originally. And the only way you're going to get a new pathway developed is by practicing. So do you want to hold the yarn in your right hand or your left hand? Give it a try and just see what feels a little more natural. Oddly enough, this left hand version for me, mostly because I'm a picker, I think, but I end up wrapping. So I'm becoming a thrower or almost a flicker, maybe a little bit here, with a combination of those, because that seems to be working for me. And I'm noticing that I'm also using my right finger here to help wrap it. That's okay. There's no rules on this. It's just a question of keep on going, and practice is going to make a difference. Now, you may see your gauge change. You may not. That's not the point, right? You need to get through it. And I promise you the first 10 rows are going to feel so awkward. The next 10 are going to feel a little less awkward. The next 10 are going to feel, oh, maybe I'm starting to get the hang of this. The next 10, oh yeah, I can do this. And then the next 10 are going to start to feel like, oh, maybe I've got something here that I can continue on with. If you just try to apply this the first time in your project, though, there's a lot going on, especially if you're working in multiple colors. So perhaps swatching is the best thing, right? Find a piece of stockinette that you can work on to give it a whirl. Maybe even make a blanket square, just so that you have something to practice on. And then when you come back to it, working needle goes in the back, wrap or pick, pull the old stitch through, or the new stitch through and the old one off. Working needle in back, grab the stitch, pull it through, old one off. And don't be afraid to try different yarn positions, because you're gonna split stitches, you're gonna miss parts of them, you know, all the things that we did when we were new knitters, because here we are learning all over again. But eventually, it's gonna make a whole lot of sense. If this is a toolbox you wanna add to your toolbox, you're gonna be glad you put the time and effort in to practice it, because look at how fast you'll be able to go. And it's okay to switch up the technique, right? Just see what makes the most sense for you, because just like the first way we've learned to knit, doesn't work the same for everybody. So switch it up. Find out which one works best for you, and then keep at it, right? 50 rows, you can do it. Happy knitting from Morehouse Farm.